Hey, today Homo Collector here. Today's video we're going to take a look at a Philippine Guerrilla Peso, also known as an emergency circulating note. This one is a 20 pesos bill. So these are kind of interesting. So basically, these were printed by the Philippine Commonwealth government in exile to fund resistance against the Japanese. So some of these were actually issued officially by the Philippine government. Certain guerrilla units apparently were printing their own. Like every province, like their administration was printing their own stuff. Of course, the U.S. government was printing pesos. And of course, the Japanese government was also issuing their own currency while they were in control of the Philippines. So there's a lot of really interesting different notes that are floating around. Now, this particular note, if we look here, is from the Iloilo Currency Committee. Now, Iloilo is the largest province of Panay and is where President Quezon set up a temporary headquarters in 1942, hence the series of 1942 listed there. And he authorized the printing of up to 5 million pesos, and he later modified this to print as much as was needed for the war effort. And by the time that Japan invaded Iloilo in April of 1942, over 6.5 million pesos worth of notes had been printed. Now, when the military in Iloilo surrendered, many people refused, of course, and the printing of currency was moved to Dialosa and Villalon. And the Dialosa press would be shut down at the end of February 1943, and then printing would restart later that year in October of 1943. So based off the serial number here, I think that this was a first printing from the Dialosa press, but I'm not 100% sure. And you might be wondering, so why did they need this money? Well, when you're fighting a resistance war, you still need money in order to barter and buy things, from locals, civilians, that kind of thing. So, you need to have pretty good cash flow amongst all these different guerrilla groups, and that's where currency like this comes into play. And if we see on the back here, Philippine National Bank, Emergency Circulating Note, 1942. And there's all kinds of different ones. Like I said, every different region had its own notes that were being printed by the different administrations. There's a ton of variety. Obviously, there are some fakes out there. I looked at this one under a jeweler's loop, and the printing seems correct for the period, but I might be wrong on that. Not an expert in currency by any stretch of the imagination. Now, you might be wondering what happens with these emergency notes after, the Philippines are liberated. Well, there's a program post-war to actually buy these notes back. So basically, if you had a bunch of these emergency notes from during the war, you could turn them in and you would get all or part of the face value back. The one source I found said that for the first 500 pesos, you got 100%. And then from there were different levels where, if it was 500 to X, you'd get 85% back or whatever. That way, if you'd been hoarding these, you weren't getting the full value. And 20 Philippine pesos was actually a lot in the 1940s. I couldn't find an inflation calculator from 1942, but if this was a 20 peso note from the 1960s, the spending power today would be worth about 3,069 pesos in today's money, which equates to about $53.50. So a lot of money for the 1940s for sure. And most of the information I've actually shared with you today came from one website about Guerrilla Pesos, which apparently is put together by a collector. It's pretty good, actually. I'll link it down in the description. But just kind of a neat piece and a little different than what we normally have in the collection. I've been doing a bit more with the Pacific War recently, so you'll probably see more items from that throughout the year. Overall, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment down below. Love hearing from you. Thank you all for watching. Happy collecting, and I'll see you all again very soon.